Hi there. We're just starting again in Lesson 21. Can you think maybe what Lesson 21 is going to be about? Do you see that star? The Star of David, the Israeli flag. Yes, you're right. We're going to be studying more about Israel. And then again, king. See something different on me? I have a crown. So we're going to be studying about the kings of Israel. Well, Lesson 21 basically says God's chosen people ask for a king. And that's where we're going to go. But before we go there, let's say, well, that's kind of sad that they asked for a king. Because you see, God was always their leader and their king. But they were looking to the Mediterranean, around the Mediterranean Sea and that whole area and around the Nile, and they saw the kings of the world. And they saw how the kings of the world operated, which they should have guessed, being slaves to the pharaohs. But also the kings had a lot of problems, didn't they? And many times the kings were focused on themselves rather than on the people. And then the dynasties, the king's children and others fought on who was going to be king. And so we end up having wars and rumors of wars and a lot of chaos. But then Israel, the country of Israel, the Israelites, wanted a king. Well, let's think about this. Let's go back and just breeze through history really quick here. That's in your book. It all started with Adam and Eve. That God created man and God created a woman. And their sons were Cain and Abel. Well, Cain killed Abel. And then they had another son named Seth. So as you can see, the sin went down. But in the beginning, God had a plan for redemption. Right back in the garden, he knew he was going to send a Savior. And then the Savior would be born through the Israel, through a certain lineage, the lineage of Christ, through Seth. Oh, then we had, of course, Noah. The world became so evil that God had to destroy it with a flood. We call the time of the flood, a deluge. Flood means deluge means flood. And anyway, you know the story of Noah's Ark, and then Noah's sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. Well, Israeli lineage, the lineage of Christ, comes through Shem. And they call them the Semites. And so you think somebody that's anti-Semitic would be anti-Israel through Shem. Then, of course, we have Abram. Started with Abram and Sarai. And God chose Abram. And Abraham became God's friend and the man of faith. He came out of the Ur of the Chaldeans. Abraham was known for his tents, going where God wanted him to go, and also for his altars of worshiping God. God changed their names to Abraham and Sarah. Put the H's in, the Hebrew H's in their name, which means grace, that God had chosen them, Abraham, to be the father of many nations. And do you know, Abraham had no children. So God had to do a miracle. And when Abraham was 100 years old and Sarah was 90 years old, they had a son. And they named their son Isaac. Laughter, because it was like, wow, can you believe God did this miracle? And that God's promises were from Abraham, because he looked to the stars in the heaven, that all of those stars would be like all of his descendants, all of his children would be that many from his one descendant of Isaac. Well, Isaac married Rebekah, and Rebekah and Isaac had two sons, Esau and Jacob. And again, they fought. And again, Rebekah and Isaac played favorites to Rebekah, to Jacob, and Isaac to Esau. And you know the story that Esau sold his birthright for a bowl of soup. Anyway, the birthright goes to Jacob. But Jacob, of course, Jacob, he's pretty much of a conniver because he actually connived his birthright. And he and Rebekah, by disguising himself as Esau and obtaining the blessing. Well, so God had to put Jacob through some wrestling with God in the midst of all of this and through some trials. But all in all, God changed Jacob's name to Israel. And Jacob, he married two sisters. Well, he wanted to marry Rachel, but then he was pretty much connived by Laban, and he ended up having to marry Leah. He didn't even know that she wasn't Rachel until after the marriage. So he had two wives, Leah and Rachel. So then we have the sons of Israel, the sons of Jacob. So we have Leah and we have Rachel. Well, Leah having sons, and you see those sons' names right there: Reuben, Simeon, Levi, Judah, Issachar, Zebulun, Gad, and Asher. Gad and Asher were sons by Leah's maidservant. And then Rachel, we have Joseph and Benjamin. And Rachel died in childbirth with Benjamin. And then we have Dan and Naphtali, and they were also children of Rachel's handmaid. All in all, there were 12 tribes of Jacob, 12 tribes of Israel. So again, we have problems with the 12 brothers, and it all came down to Joseph. And you know the story of Joseph, that all of the brothers took Joseph, and they knew that Joseph was, with his coat of many colors, was the favorite of Jacob. They were jealous and they were envious, and they were mad that Jacob would choose Joseph. Well, Joseph had some dreams, and they didn't like the dreams of them bowing down to him and all this. So they put him in a pit, and of course we know the story that they ended up pulling him out of the pit and selling him to a caravan of slave traders. Goes to Egypt, and the times he goes through, quite times. I read the story, a magnificent story, where they end up having to go to Egypt during a famine, and Joseph is in charge. You know that story, don't you? Well, so they go to Egypt, and at first Joseph, he is just shocked that they're there, but his heart is softened, and he ends up bringing all of Jacob's descendants, 70 of them, into Egypt to live with him. And Joseph is second only to Pharaoh. What a story, huh? Then we have 400 years of slavery in Egypt. And we just studied that with Moses, the prince of Egypt. He was raised with the prince of Egypt. And then he found out that he was Hebrew, because when he was born, he was actually pulled out of the river and raised by the Pharaoh's daughter. And of course we have him, his conversion at the burning bush, and that God sent him to be deliverer of Israel. And we go on to those 10 plagues that happened, and God parts the Red Sea, and the 10 Commandments, and then the 40 years of wandering, that God feeds them with manna in the desert, and their shoes don't wear off, or their clothes don't wear out, but they keep murmuring and complaining. So we have this 40 years, and that's where we kind of ended up. I'm going to stop there, and we're going to continue and get into this lesson even more.